In rural Northern Ireland, an elderly couple is watching TV. Suddenly, the lady notices drops of blood falling into her tea, which starts to swirl. As she realizes her nose is bleeding, her husband's eyes begin to bleed too. To their shock, blood is coming out from under their chairs as well. At that moment the door opens and the lady screams while her husband exclaims devil. This started 2 months ago. At a pub called the Stoker, William and Eugene are having a drink. But since Eugene is unemployed and has a big debt with the pub, William's girlfriend Claire stops serving him drinks. When 2 Canadian tourists enter the pub, Eugene guesses they're here to see the cairn and tells them that William's family owns the terrain. He convinces them to hire them as their guides and gets paid with a bunch of beer cans. On the way to the fields, Eugene shares the local legend. This land used to belong to an evil man called the Partok, which means undead in Gaelic. He drank people's blood, so the locals tried to kill him many times, but he just kept coming back. Eventually a chieftain managed to stab a Partok through the heart and buried him in the field under a pile of rocks known as a cairn. When Irish writer Bram Stoker visited the town, a Partok became his inspiration for Dracula, transforming this little town into a minor tourist attraction. In the middle of the field the group finds the cairn, which hasn't been moved since it was built. Legend says that if you get too close, you spontaneously start to bleed. The Canadian man is skeptical, so William tells him he grew up here and he always heard a Partok's voice coming from the grave. The tourist presses his ear against the cairn and screams when a very creepy hand suddenly grabs him, but it's just SP. It's revealed that the 3 friends often mess with tourists like this. The couple insults them before leaving and the trio celebrates another successful prank by drinking. The next day, Eugene wakes up late when his father Francie repeatedly honks the horn. Francie scolds Eugene for staying up late drinking and wonders why he won't sell his house, since it's barely standing. Eugene says it's not what his mother would have wanted and invites his father to come in, but Francie explains that he has too much work. His construction company has been hired to do the groundwork on the new bypass and he asks Eugene if he wants a position on the team. Eugene turns him down, pointing out that the new bypass will put William and his parents off their land and the locals hate that this project will destroy the cairn. After Francie leaves, Eugene starts working on fixing his late mother's barn. While inspecting a hole in the wall, he's shocked to find a broken human skull. At that moment he's startled by Claire and William, who tried to call him all morning to no avail. The friends go to town together and bump into William's father George, who has to work on Saturday because he needs the extra money. The new bypass has ruined the family land and they have to leave in 2 months. Since George is a mortician, Eugene shows him the skull he's found, but George says it's not worth anything. There are probably lots of dead things buried in that old farm. Then Eugene showers in his father's house because his place doesn't have hot water. Suddenly he's startled by the skull staring at him, but it's just his dad pranking him. Francie scolds him because Eugene refuses to work or sell the house and lives by borrowing things from others. Eugene changes the subject by asking if his mother's farm was built on a historical site and even considers calling an archaeologist, thinking they may pay him to dig. An angry Francie scolds him again because digging will destroy the place and Eugene can't keep on living with hopes of a plan that will give him easy money. Later in the pub, William tells Eugene that he's moving to Australia. However, when Claire asks them what they're talking about, they don't tell her the truth. At the end of the night, William is too drunk, so Eugene drives him home. While walking down the field, Eugene insults William for abandoning his friends and hometown and calls him a coward for not telling Claire yet. When Eugene says he'll tell Claire the truth if his friend doesn't, William gets angry and punches him. A fight ensues and it's revealed that this always happens when William gets drunk. After some struggle, Eugene kicks William, causing him to land on the cairn and slash his hand on a sharp rock. At that moment the boys hear George yelling that they need to get out of the field. They stare around in confusion when suddenly a bull runs toward them and gores William against the cairn, repeatedly hitting him with his horns. When George is finally close enough, he shoots the bull and the beast runs away, but William is already dead. While George clings to his son, Eugene notices the blood seeping into the soil. After the funeral, Eugene and SP go to the pub for a drink. However, the locals blame William's death on the group's pranks and are angry at Eugene's family for destroying the fields, so the duo is kicked out. They end up drinking from cans inside a van and Eugene wonders if he should move somewhere to have a fresh start, but SP points out he has no money to do so. This depressing situation makes Eugene finally give in and take his father's job offer, so Claire and SP join too. When George sees Eugene, he feels betrayed and asks him if he saw something the night of William's death. Eugene swears he saw nothing, but George still warns him that destroying the cairn will have bad consequences. Once George is gone, Eugene tells company employee Gabriel to bring down the cairn. However, Gabriel doesn't want to be the one to wake up evil, so Eugene decides to do it himself. With just one hit from the excavator, the entire cairn goes down. That night, Eugene tells Claire that he's considering moving to Australia, but he hasn't told his father yet. Claire mocks his lack of subtlety and reveals she had known about William's plan all along. When she sees a picture of Eugene's mother, they discuss her death because the family never figured out if it was an accident or if she self-deleted on purpose. Claire shares that when she was 7, she saw her father die because he tried to use a chainsaw without knowing how. At the construction site, Charlie is supposed to be guarding the place, but he keeps drinking. Suddenly he hears a noise and goes outside to investigate, but there's nobody around. He yells in frustration and doesn't see someone sneaking behind him. When Charlie returns to the office, he screams in horror before blood splatters on the window. The next morning the construction team arrives and is surprised the gate is still closed since Charlie was supposed to open it early. Francie has to leave to see a client, so he puts Eugene in charge. When the team crosses the gate, they're shocked to discover that the cairn has been rebuilt. Eugene calls Charlie but he doesn't respond, so he goes looking for him to no avail. In the evening, Francie returns and yells at Eugene because the team barely did any work and now they're 3 days behind. Eugene tells him he's found a way to bypass the cairn, but Francie reminds him he isn't an engineer, so he can't plan anything. At that moment Charlie appears at the door with a bleeding wound on his head. He admits he doesn't know what happened, so Francie tells Eugene to take him to the hospital. After they get in the truck, Charlie says that something turned and attacks Eugene, causing the van to crash into the equipment. Francie and the team rush to get Eugene out of the van and he mentions that Charlie tried to bite him. However, Charlie has disappeared. Then all the lights go out on the construction site and Eugene thinks they should leave, but Francie thinks he wants to avoid working. Suddenly Gabriel is dragged away into the darkness and blood is splattered on Eugene's face. The group is in shock because they never saw someone move so fast. Francie sends SP to get him something he can use as a weapon and tells Eugene to start the bumper, ignoring anything his son has to say. Then Eugene and Claire go looking for the bumper keys in the break room. When Eugene points his flashlight at the corner, he's startled to see Charlie with blood all over his face. Charlie jumps on him and tries to bite him again, so Eugene does his best to block him. Claire starts hitting Charlie with a pole, but when he turns around she immediately hides under the table. Charlie gets on top of it and waits until Claire comes out to try to attack, but Eugene lifts the table and causes him to fall right on the pole, which pierces his chest and pushes his heart out. Meanwhile, Francie and SP find Gabriel's dead body on the grass. At that moment Eugene and Claire join them and tell them Charlie is dead. However, Charlie also comes out of the break room with the pole still sticking out. Francie runs to grab the pole and in the struggle, the heart falls off. He asks the others for help, so together they push the pole until Charlie falls into a hole. Eugene blames all this on the destruction of the cairn, although Claire finds it strange that Charlie didn't die when his heart was stabbed as the legend says. Marcy still thinks supernatural stuff isn't real and Charlie is just drunk, but he's interrupted by Charlie pushing his body up the pole. While the men argue over what to do, Claire gets on the excavator and dumps lots of dirt on Charlie to bury him. Since Charlie is still pushing through, Claire grabs the stones from the cairn and drops them on him, which finally keeps him down. When Francie tries to think of something to tell the police, Eugene finally snaps and shares what he saw on the night of William's death. He theorizes that Apartak is still alive in his grave and the cairn was the only thing keeping him trapped. Suddenly a foot emerges from the now uncovered cairn, so the group runs away in panic and hides in George's house. They try to tell him what's going on, but he doesn't believe them and goes to check on his wife Pauline, who has been catatonic since her son's death. Then Eugene calls the police. Knowing that nobody will believe the truth, he tells the officer he saw someone suspicious lurking around town and convinces him to investigate. After he hangs up, the group agrees that the police are useless, so they should do something themselves. They ask George for his car and he says no, but they take his keys anyway. When they get in the car, Eugene finds an empty bottle of Charlie's cheap sauce and angrily realizes something. He rushes back into the house to speak to George, but he can't find him. Instead, he ends up in the morgue and discovers a bunch of dead animals in the drawers. Soon the rest of the group joins him and they think the animals are suspicious too. Then George shows up and they ask him about the sauce bottle. So George points a gun at them and tells Eugene he has a choice to make. He can leave safely now or stay and learn a truth that will change him forever. Eugene wants the truth, so George tells him to go to the good room, which is a space he and William weren't allowed to enter when they were kids. When Eugene opens the door, he finds bars blocking the entrance and a huge mess in the room. He comes closer to investigate only to be startled by William, who has become a feral vampire just like Charlie. Eugene stares at his friend in grief for a minute before returning to the living room. After he tells the group that William is in the room, they run to take a look and Claire screams. In town, two teenagers are sharing a cigarette but get distracted when they see a shadowy figure nearby. Suddenly the boy's neck makes a cracking sound and he drops dead. While the girl panics, blood flows out of the body in the direction of the shadow. Meanwhile, George shares the full story. After William's death, George volunteered to take care of the body. Pauline had a breakdown and asked him to send it to another mortician, but George refused. At that moment William woke up and Pauline screamed until she entered her current catatonic state. William was still weak, so George locked him up in the good room and fed him meat. However, it wasn't enough, so George started to bring him live animals. It turns out it isn't the vampire bite that transforms humans, it's the stones from the cairn. George found a piece in William's hand during the autopsy. Refusing to move to a new house while having a vampire, George killed Charlie and opened his chest to insert a cairn stone, hoping that Charlie's attacks would shut down the construction site. The group starts listing all of William's amazing qualities and points out that it's not the same person in the room, causing George to have a breakdown and say he doesn't know what to do. Francie comes closer to comfort him, but it's just an excuse to take his gun. When the group is about to leave, George asks them to help him finish this. After some hesitation they agree, but they need a better way to end the vampires than burying them. Francie thinks they should decapitate them, so the group starts preparing a trap in the hallway to deal with William. While they work, SP wonders if Apartak is looking for the guy that originally trapped him. Eugene calls the police again and an officer assures him the town is at peace as usual. Once everyone is ready, Eugene opens the good room and runs, so William goes after him. All the other rooms have been sealed to keep him from hiding. William gets suspicious and doesn't step out of the hallway, so Claire holds Eugene's hand to trigger William's jealousy. The vampire runs forward and George gets ready to kill him with an axe. However, he's shot by Pauline, who has awakened at the sight of her son. She tries to reunite with him, but William slashes her throat and begins drinking her blood. The terrified group runs outside and gets in the car, only to realize the keys are missing. When William comes out too, George tries to shoot him but he misses and hits the car instead. The group runs back into the house while George finally manages to shoot his son. However, bullets do no damage at all. Refusing to endure this any longer, George says goodbye to William and tries to self-delete, but he has no ammo left. William takes the chance to jump on him and kills him as he drinks his blood. In town, the police officer is awakened by a weird noise. He goes to the bathroom to relieve himself and is shocked to see blood coming out instead of pee. Moments later, Claire's mother has a nosebleed in her sleep and the blood slips under the front door. In the pub, the owner has a nosebleed as well. The scene from the beginning is happening now too. Soon blood is coming out from most buildings in the neighborhood. At George's house, William is looking for a new victim. He goes to the morgue and ignores the coffin to open the drawer where SP is hiding. While Eugene sneaks out of the coffin, SP shoots William with a nail gun. Then Eugene hits William with the axe and SP with a dead sheep, so together they push him into the coffin. Claire and Francie come to help them keep the lid down, but in the struggle William slashes SP's stomach and Eugene's arm. Claire retrieves the nail gun and uses it to properly nail the lid down, keeping William trapped. Afterward, Eugene follows a blood trail to find SP drinking on the couch. His friends rush to cover the wound, but he tells them he's accepted his end and finishes his beer before dying. Claire and Eugene begin to cry and Francie decides to shake his son to remind him the job isn't over yet. Then the trio buries the coffin and puts all the cairn stones on top of the grave. Next, they drive the bumper to return to town. Outside the pub they see an unconscious man on the ground with all his blood coming out of his nose. Claire rushes to check on her mother and stepfather and finds them both bleeding in bed. The trio wonders how they could find Apartak and Eugene theorizes that the remains of his victims must be somewhere, which makes him think about the skull he found the other day. This means his mother's farm used to be his lair. While Claire stays with her family, Eugene and Francie rush to the farm and find the house's front door open. They go inside and Francie tries to turn on the lights, but Eugene still hasn't fixed them. In the barn, Apartak is drinking all the blood that comes to him through a tunnel but stops when he senses a presence. Upstairs, Francie and Eugene look at some old pictures. They realize that the maiden name of Eugene's mother is the same as the guy who captured Apartak the first time, making Eugene his descendant. Francie takes a step and Eugene thinks his father wants a hug. However, Francie actually wants to look at his wound. Eugene's arm is heavily bleeding and Francie's ear now starts bleeding too, which means that the creature is close. After Francie simply puts a tissue in his ear, they hear a noise so they hide behind the door. While waiting, Francie pretends he saw something and Eugene turns around, only for his father to knock him out with a punch. Then Francie hides his son under some bags to keep him safe. When Apartak reaches the top of the stairs, Francie surprises him from behind and quickly decapitates him with the axe. Francie then goes to wake Eugene up and tries to convince him he just fainted, not noticing the loose head magically moving on the floor to reach the body and reattach itself. Suddenly Apartak grabs Francie by his jacket and throws him against the railing before hitting his leg with the axe. Eugene pushes a tool cart into Apartak to trap him against the wall, then he helps his dad stand up and takes him into the next room. While Apartak starts pounding on the door, the duo decides to escape by sliding down the rubble chute outside the window. After a rough landing, Francie and Eugene notice that the sun is rising. They go to the barn hoping that Apartak will come for them and get burned by the sunlight. When Francie steps back, he accidentally falls into a hole and ends up in the barn's basement. Eugene immediately follows him, but he has to take a peek when he hears a noise. It turns out Apartak is unaffected by sunlight and is now entering the barn. Eugene drags Francie behind a wall to hide while Apartak comes down into the hole too, hitting the columns while he searches for them. A desperate Eugene wants a weapon, so Francie tells him to use his broken leg. After some hesitation, Eugene pulls Francie's leg until he rips it off and stabs Apartak with the exposed bone. While Apartak squirms on the ground, Eugene pulls lots of dirt out of the hole in the wall to bury him. Soon all the people around town start waking up. Eugene finishes piling stones on the grave to create a new cairn. Then he rushes to check on his father. Francie finally tells him good job before he passes out. 3 months later, Eugene and Claire have their final drink together at the pub before Claire leaves for Australia for a year. Afterward, Eugene goes home, which his father is helping renovate even though now he has to walk on a peg leg with the help of a cane. In the barn, Eugene adds bricks and slates to the cairn to make it stronger. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.